Hey guys, Matt Lighty here, and this is your Patch Note C overview. We're on the third update amendment for patch notes, and the day has passed in New Zealand, so I figured I'd just make this to go over it. There are some pretty substantial changes in these new patch note sections. The joke just kind of keeps growing that every day we get patch notes that are as important for certain subsections of players as the entire patch notes, which begs the question, what's the fucking point of patch notes if every day there's just more? But either way, patch note C was a pass on a lot of caster and cold stuff. Not to mention there was a change for Omeicans regarding the maximum scaling of them. This is less important, I would say. It's just regarding the state being a cap at amount. Yeah. There's also a strange because you're making an amendment to like saying that the previous cap was this, but it was actually never capped and this is the real cap. But if you didn't tell us, we would never have known, so what was the point of even saying this? But that's irrelevant. The real stuff is the caster stuff and the occultist change. We can go the occultist first, 'cause it's the only one that's like really negative, I would say. Everything else is, these are all like really, really good stuff, and this is a nerf. Vile Bastion no longer provides 2% ES regen per second for each enemy you've killed recently, up to 10, so you had 10% ES regen, and it now grants 100 flat ES regen per second, previously 40, and also has max ES is increased by chance to block spell damage. I think this is just worse. I can't imagine this being that much better. 100 flat, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's better. I think it's probably worse overall, because you had some pretty staggering amounts. I mean, you're easily able to get to 15,000 ES regen on most endgame ES build, or 15,000 base, so it was just like whatever, and then pushing the spell block part means it's like if you're not scaling spell block, this is just actually a dead stat over here, so kind of, I think it's overall nerf, but it's, I could see it being better in some scenarios, but I don't know who this was offending to begin with, so it's like, okay, Vile Bastion was nerfed, I guess. Anyway, there was a bunch of changes to the caster masteries, and so some of them in cold dot ones, so we're gonna go from the top down, and then some of them are really funny and interesting, and then I'm not saying it makes you want to play Winter Orb after Winter Orb keeps getting little touches of kind of buffs here and there, but like the bait for Winter Orb is growing by the minute. So the first one is a new Hasty Demise cluster has been added to the northwest of the Witch's Tree. Hasty Demise provides 30% dot with spell skills, 8% cast speed, and this is the big one I would say, 10% reduced skill effect duration, which is typically going to be construed as a downside for this upside, but really there's just not that much reduced skill effect duration in the game. Any amount of reduced skill effect duration might lead to a scenario where a new breakpoint is reached for things, so whether it's to get a skill effect reduced to the point where it occurs frequently, i.e. think of something like Aspect of the Cat flipping between things, or Lightning Warp being a damn near insta-cast. So like there's a lot of things where reduced skill effect duration can lead to breakpoints in spell loops and things like that, so any more amount of that means there's potentially further technology towards that thing, and that is interesting. Next, you have a new Harsh Lessons cluster has been added to the northeast of the Witch's starting node. We don't have a tree yet, so we don't know exactly whatever, but it provides 12% damage over time with spell skills and 20% reduced duration of ailments on you. So, damage over time with spell skills can be good. It's almost always going to be like, this is very cold.e, but 20% reduced duration of ailments is kind of whatever. Reduced duration of ailments is one of those stats that they keep pushing that is never something I'm ever going to give a shit about, because I would never want to have reduced duration of ailments when I could just have immunity to those ailments, or 100% chance to avoid those ailments, right? Because even being shocked for 1 second means for that 1 second I'm taking 50% more damage, or I'm frozen for 1 second, or I have a huge ignite for 1 second. It's never worth it. You're still reaching that state of vulnerability, so yeah, the duration of it, I just don't give a shit, but sure. A new Arcane Retaliation cluster has been added to the northwest of the Witch starting location. 25% more spell damage if you've been stunned recently. If you are putting on your, like, thinking history caps, you'll know that this exists already on a mastery. So why are they adding it back somewhere else? Well, we'll get to that in a second. The cold mastery that provided +1 max cold res has been replaced with a mastery that provides +1 max cold damage over time multiplier for 4% overcapped cold res. So if you have you know, 100% over cap color versus 25 multi. That's pretty good. I don't really know like how you're scaling this, but that might be a route for doing some sort of Aegis Aurora, cold dot type thing, you know, melding of the flesh, purity of ice, like going all in on cold, kind of like a chieftain would for fire, that being a thing. So very cool. The next one is actually like super huge. The cold master that provided caused nearby enemies to shatter, to be 20% to be covered in ash. Instead now has minus 30 fire res and +1 level to all cold skills. This is like, I think, a gross mastery, because negative non-maximum res, especially only 30, is so easily overcame in endgame builds, right? And minus 30 res for +1 all cold gems, not just active cold gems, not just like in your link, we're talking all cold gems. So your hatred gets gem level, your pure device gets a gem level. It's obviously skill gems, but like this is pretty substantial. So again, Winter Orb, okay, we're getting somewhere. The caster master that provided more spell damage has been stunned recently. Hey, look, that was that one up there. Now gives you a power charge every second while channeling a spell. So, you know, Winter Orb. So now Winter Orb, you could get a power. This what this means is all the Winter Orb builds and all the channeling spells that had to run, you know, power charge on crit no longer have to worry about that, because you're always gaining a power charge every second, and the downtime between packs, your power charges should last pretty, you know, heavily. So very cool that exists. That's a very strong one. So these two I think are really, really good masteries in conjunction. And then finally we have here the caster mastery that causes final repeats of spells to have increased AoE is now 40 from 30, so like echo builds. I don't really see the point of this. Like if I'm echoing and I have decent AoE, I don't care about last AoE for 40% increased. If it was like 40% more, maybe like something really substantial, but to me it just seems like not a, I don't know, not a huge whatever. It's kind of middling of a mastery. I don't think I'll ever would pick this up, but maybe I'm misreading it, or I don't know. And the next one I think is really, really nice. So the staff mastery that previously gave double duration for stun has been replaced with 5% max mana per blue socket on a staff and 3% max life per red socket on a staff. So you can get 30 mana on a staff, you know, or you can get some combination of both, because you're probably not going to use just 6 blues, but a lot of casters actually do use 6 blues, so that's fine. But yeah, that's like nice. That's a really solid mastery. So that's the patch note B change or C changes. Probably gonna be patch note D changes tomorrow when I wake up, or next day. But yeah, Warp stocks going up again. So looking forward to seeing if there's another patch or what's happening. But that's your patch C changes. And I guess that we could talk about one more thing that's kind of in patch C, because they showed it in the same way. At the same time, they also showed this section called Additional Secrets from Secrets of the Atlas, which is just, they showed over a different section of like some of the new Charthan gems, which is this going to be really loud? Okay, good, it's not. It's pretty loud. But they showed this Wave of Conviction of Charthus that shoots in a Nova. Doesn't have a fucking Nova tag, so morons. I don't know what, hopefully they add that, because that's like the most, like, it's literally shooting in a Nova from the character, so that's goofy. And then like a weird, you know, Crown of Eyes heavy strike. And then they added a bunch of these rare modifiers they showcased. One of them is like this blink arrow, mirror arrow, uses your gloves. Very good for rare gloves. For people who play Bama, that's quite strong for getting easy pierce for exposure and things. I looked at the full set of unique gloves. None of them particularly stood out. For those people who are saying like Soul Ascension, things like that, your Bamas replace themselves quite frequently. And most of the buffs that they have that are temporary are going to fall off. Like, you can't give them focus and things. You can't do them. There's a lot of things you can't do for the clones. So, but either way, just wearing a rare glove that has exposure on hit, has pierce, things like that, that's pretty strong. So, cool there. War Cries covering things in ash is okay. Curses on enemies in your chilling areas have increased effect is okay. But, yeah, there's the big, that's all fine and well. The big thing is came from what they showed in the FAQ, which is this one line, this part. Well, the Charthan gems also appear in the divine font at the end of lab, or are they available for mercs? They do specifically state that Charthan gems are only available for mercenaries starting in area 68 or higher, meaning you cannot get Charthan gems while leveling. They're only from maps or map-esque areas. So Literally, don't bother trying to plan a league start for a Charthan gem if you're playing an SSF, because it might drive you nuts. Or like that sort of stuff, and don't bother trying to farm for them pre-maps because they don't exist. So yeah, that's it. That's your patch C in all its glory. Tons of information. Wasn't in the patch notes. It's in the 3rd amendment of the patch notes and such. I'm sure there'll be more tomorrow. I'll update stuff then maybe if there is, and that's it. All right, bye.